our own time. Michael Heaney reminds us of the major issues of that tragic conflict.
All wars are dreadful, but civil wars are unspeakable, and so it was in Ireland in 1922 and 23. So bitter and divisive was the Irish Civil War that the country has never since seemed fully able to come to terms with it. It's governed our politics, but seems to have escaped the cool, calm appraisal it's required. It was a war over a compromise. The compromise was in the Anglo-Irish Treaty. When Collins and Griffith signed the treaty, they were seen to have compromised their Irish Republican goals. That was as difficult for Republicans in 1922 as it may prove to be in 1998. What they had won was a free state within the Commonwealth. It was acceptable to most people. Certainly it was popular. But it was not what Pearse had died for 6 years earlier. It was not the Republic so passionately fought for in the War of Independence by a united IRA. It was, in some respects, a war over an oath. The pledge of loyalty to the Crown was not something that Republican activists could easily swallow, not after the sacrifices they and their colleagues had undergone. Strangely, the border was not an issue for these men. Few of them, or their leaders, ever guessed that the Boundary Commission would leave the border virtually permanent. What they could see was that the choice of a free state within the Commonwealth was for them virtually no choice at all. So it became war. The drift to war began with the bombardment of the forecourts by the Free State government in June 1922. It had been occupied by the anti-treaty forces, who were defiant. The devastation in Dublin would spread south and west over the following year as brother turned against brother. It would end in the hills and valleys of the southwest as the Free State Army mopped up the anti-treaty forces, but only after chilling atrocities such as those seen at Ballyseedy. One of the main questions: could Lloyd George have been pushed to give more, enough to avoid the civil war that was to come? Then there was the role of De Valera, a role that in many ways came to dominate subsequent decades of Irish politics, and even today remains a matter of extreme disagreement. Should De Valera have stood more firmly against the drift to violence in 1922? Would it have made a difference had he done more? He was faced, like other Irish Republican leaders before and since, with a compromise. But did he pay too high a price to avoid a split? De Valera carried the responsibility of a man who had led a united Sinn Féin through the War of Independence. But the extent to which his popularity could have arrested the decline into civil war remains a matter of disagreement. Still today the question is asked, was Dev to blame? Or did he take the only course open to him consistent with his Republican principles? Then there was Michael Collins, the charismatic IRA leader who accepted the compromise as a stepping stone. Collins took the Free State, swallowed the oath to the Crown, and described it as a transitional step to a republic. Was he right? Or was his acceptance of the treaty a sellout of his principles, a virtual guarantee that civil war would follow? Collins, the lost leader, gunned down in the Civil War in August 1922. Michael Collins was the pragmatic one, the Republican leader not unprepared to accept compromise, who died before he could see the compromise through. These two men, Collins and De Valera, remain today as great icons of Irish politics. Together they represent choices still facing the island. These are the choices that arise when Republican pragmatism collides with Republican principle, when knife-edge choices herald peace or war. They're the choices that arise when the road forks, turning one way towards constitutional politics, and the other way towards armed struggle and the pursuit of an Irish Republican dream, still elusive and possibly